A rabbi, a lawyer, a financial planner, and a doctor walk into a bar to plan for the High Holy Days. I wish it were a joke, but as you might imagine, it's not far from the truth. There often was more than one rabbi and more than one doctor, as well as a cantor. We weren't at a bar. Instead, mostly talking over Zoom from our home offices, though I confess I sometimes needed a drink afterward. While planning each year for the High Holy Days is always an enormous undertaking for our clergy, our staff, our lay leaders, our committed volunteers, this year's efforts called for an unprecedented level of creativity and adaptability. Facing a rapidly shifting public health landscape and evolving CDC guidance, our team had to pivot many times over the past several months. Through it all, they remained committed to ensuring that all congregants could enjoy a safe and meaningful High Holy Day experience, whether in person here or virtually through the live stream. I'm so proud of our TBS team. I'm especially glad to see so many of you here in person. While our sanctuary is not quite as dense as it was in 2019, and there's a lot of social distancing going on here, this is clearly, looking out into the sanctuary, the largest in-person gathering we've had at TBS in almost 2 years. Of course, this follows one of our most well-attended TBS annual meetings held in June in the parking lot, to which many of you have been referring to as the largest TBS presidential inauguration crowd ever. Last Rosh Hashanah, we spoke about Darchenu, our path forward. That was 6 months into the pandemic, with no crystal ball to show us the future, nor a map to navigate our ever-changing reality. We did at TBS what we do best. We connected and supported one another in community, but with a virtual spin. In doing so, we opened new doors and pathways to connections that in many ways expanded and strengthened our community. From the outset, we maintained Shabbat services in our daily minyanim via Zoom. Each week, we offered classes, speakers, programs, and events on Zoom that often drew more people than would have been able to attend in the old days when we were only in person. Our relatives and friends from around the country, even around the world, have been able to participate remotely in a bar bat mitzvah, in Ufruf, a baby naming taking place on this bima. While I certainly long to go back to what many of us considered normal before March 2020, I am grateful for the new pathways for connection and inclusion that we've gained. This year, we're speaking of teshuvah, which means return. So what do we mean when we say we are charting our return at TBS as we learn how to resume our lives with COVID still in the background? How do we cultivate all that we gained, all the new approaches to connecting and learning that brought us closer together so that our community is even stronger than before? These questions are top of mind as we plan for our congregational teshuvah. As we chart our return, we have launched a planning and programming initiative dubbed TBS Connects to reimagine how we connect as a TBS community in 2021 and beyond. This year has taught us that you can log on to a class from Florida, a service from the shore, or a program from Israel. And we look forward to growing our virtual opportunities for connection, which will allow us to expand our TBS family. I am thrilled to share that TBS Connects is being generously funded by a multi-year contribution from Stephanie and Chuck Kahn, and our heartfelt thank you to Stephanie and Chuck for helping us launch this very exciting initiative. Please look out for more in the coming months about TBS Connects. At the same time, when thinking of our return, consider that we never really left. Over the past year, due to the unrivaled creativity and commitment of our staff and volunteers, just think of some of our accomplishments. Exactly a year ago, we produced entirely virtual High Holy Day services and delivered machzorim to our members' homes. We also reached our congregants at their homes by hand-delivering specially prepared boxes for the High Holy Days, Pesach, and Hanukkah. Thanks to the leadership and Herculean efforts of our faculty and staff of the Eric B. Jacobs ECEC, It safely operated all this past year with almost 60 students enrolled, providing preschool and daycare programs and desperately needed interaction amongst our youngest congregants, almost all of whom are outside in the parking lot as we speak. We introduced our first at TBS religious school program and adapted our Hamakom Hebrew High School program to engage more than 230 religious school and Hebrew High students virtually and in person. Our important Jewish life cycle events continued, with more than 30 B'nai Mitzvah conducted on this bima or from congregants' homes via Zoom. We held a very successful virtual tribute dinner, and Sisterhood Men's Club, Chazak, Young Members Group held innumerable programs virtually and in person. We conducted virtual lunch and learn programs, even virtual tours live from Israel. And we capped off the year with a fantastic 10-year anniversary Divas on the Bima outdoor concert featuring our very own Cantor Cohen. So while we think about returning, let us not lose appreciation for the fact that in many respects, we never left. Despite being physically apart, we were always spiritually close. That is what TBS does. We are there for our congregants and our community, no matter the challenges we face, even a once-in-a-100-year pandemic. And we continue to adapt, improve, and plan for the future. We have been able to do all of this because of you, our TBS family. We are so grateful to those who have stepped up during this time as plus givers, sponsors, and supporters of our programs and our shul. As you know, it's our custom on the High Holy Days to ask congregants to make a pledge for our annual High Holy Day appeal. Therefore, I'm going to soon ask each of you to do so. But first, a quick joke, a real one this time. Two beggars are sitting outside the Vatican. One of the beggars displays a large cross and the other a Jewish star. The beggar with the cross has a cup overflowing with money, while the Jewish beggar has only a few coins. A priest walks by and notices the disparity, and he approaches the Jewish beggar. "Excuse me," the priest says, "but do you realize you are sitting in the center of the Catholic world? You'll never raise money with the Star of David on your cup." The beggar with the star turns to the one with the cross and says, "Moshe, look who's teaching us about fundraising." Oh, it's so good to have a live audience. I don't have any marketing gimmicks to ask for your support. I have only the sincerity of my words and the confidence in our shared love for TBS. Despite the pandemic, our synagogue remains healthy, strong, and vibrant. Due to the hard work and fiscal stewardship of our professional staff and lay leadership, we have continued to carefully manage our house these last 2 years. We have also had many generous congregants answer the call for special contributions and others who donated without being asked. This has allowed us to remain fiscally strong without cutting back on love and needed programs and services because of you, our community. So why do we need a High Holy Day appeal, and why should you make a pledge in support of the appeal? First and foremost, this appeal is a significant component of our fundraising goal each year, for which we budget. The funds raised through this appeal provide critical resources for much of what we do throughout the year. Quite simply, they allow us to remain fiscally sound, operationally secure, and programmatically innovative. Second, well, I can't tell you the second reason why each of you should give, or the reason that each and every member of our board of directors already has made their pledge this year. But I will share with you why Stacy and I contributed this year and every year to the High Holy Day appeal. It's because of all the different things TBS is for us. For us, TBS is the place where our children, Josh and Adam, they have been taught since preschool to love and embrace Judaism and understand and enjoy our traditions. TBS is the place where we can celebrate together on Shabbat, holidays, simchas, and other joyous occasions. TBS is the place to come together to comfort and support each other in crisis, console one another when we lose a loved one, and say Kaddish during a period of mourning or a yortzeit. TBS is the place where we have made some of our closest friends and have gained a sense of belonging and community. TBS is the place where we come together to address larger concerns confronting the Jewish community, like anti-Semitism, engaging in tikkun olam, and supporting Israel. TBS is the place where we form new links in the long chain of Jewish tradition, carrying on historic values for future generations, Lidor Vador. And TBS is the place where we are so proud and so blessed to have the best clergy team of any synagogue I know. We give because we want TBS to continue to be all these things. We give because we want TBS to remain vibrant and strong and the envy of Jewish communities around the country. We give to be an example to our children. We give so that TBS, this sacred community, our Kehillah Kedoshah, can continue to be this place for our family and for all of you and your families. Your presence here today, whether in person here, outside in the tent, online via the live stream, means that TBS is an important place to you, that it is your sacred community too. So if you can hear me in the sanctuary or over the live stream, please make a pledge in support of our High Holy Day appeal. Each year, only about 60% of our congregants contribute to the High Holy Day appeal, and I'm hoping that this year we can bring that participation close to 100%. You have a number of ways of making your pledge. First, for those of you here in person, there's a pledge card with your name at your seat. Bend whatever tab or tabs you wish and leave the card in the envelope with us today. I will ask some of our ushers and board members to circulate in a moment to collect envelopes. If you're not here in person, but you'll be here tomorrow, your card should be at your seat, unless someone here today decided to make a pledge on your behalf. Second, if you wish to make a pledge in an amount other than what is possible with the pledge card tab, simply take the card home, complete it, and return it to the office after Rosh Hashanah. And if you're not here in person or you don't have a card at your seat, after Rosh Hashanah you may easily do so by pledging on our electronic pledge card on the TBS website. For your reference, the amount of last year's pledge is shown on the back of your card. If you want to make the same pledge, just bend back the tab that says same as last year. If you can pledge more than you pledged last year, that is tremendous. One way to do so would be to also bend the $18 tab to increase your pledge by $18 over last year. For those of you who were not able to make a pledge last year, please consider contributing at least $18 so that everyone in our TBS community will play an important part in this appeal. Let's all together, as a community, set an example for each other and do our part to strengthen our Kehillah Kedoshah even more. In closing, on behalf of me and Stacy and the entire board of directors of the synagogue, I wish each and every one of you a Shana Tova U'Mitzukah, a good and sweet new year. May it be a peaceful and especially this year, healthy year for each of you and your families. Shana Tova.